I was 9 years old in the Depression days when the bank closed. You think, what can a kid lose? Well, I lost my life savings, which is $8 and some change. And the only reason why I had a banking account is because the school promoted savings. Every Monday, I would bring my nickels and dimes to put in my savings account. I watched my savings grow slowly. Then the banking closed and I lost all of my money. Eventually, my bank reopened and I got my $8 and change back, but I never put it in a bank again. I kept my money in a mason jar up in the rafters of my barn.
The Depression.
I was living in Clinton, Maine during the Great Depression. It was very exhausting. My sister and I were expected to do whatever we could to help.
When I was 8, I started to milk the cows. I was so proud when I finally learned how to turn the separator to remove the cream. When I was 12, I bought a .22 caliber rifle and killed grouse, snowshoe hares, and squirrels, and many more.
During Christmas vacation, I trapped ermine and made over $60.
As I look back on those days, I realized we not only survived, but became better and stronger people.
During the Great Depression, I was young and my family was poor. So were many other American families. In the Depression, money was low, so there was no extra money for kid stuff. My younger brother and I could pocket a nickel now and again and find pop bottle caps on the streets for candy money. Bobby was 7 and I was 9, so that meant we were too young for jobs. We thought our money problems were going to get worse, but we were wrong when our neighbor's 14-year-old boy suggested we be newsboys for him. Mom did not exactly like the fact that we wanted to be newsboys. She finally agreed under one condition, that we turned our earnings into her and we would receive a dime every Saturday for the movies. I sold in front of a big Sears store. There was a lot of traffic, so it wasn't hard to sell all my papers. Extras sold the best on the Battle of Pearl Harbor. Me and the other newsboys sold extras to everyone in sight.
I was 7 when the banks closed, too young to know we were in the Depression.
I just thought we were poor, but it seemed that my dad and everyone else were losing jobs.
Well, my dad didn't have a job. My brother and I went and sold berries door to door.
If we had any berries left, it was a real treat for us to have them for dessert.
We had to walk in from school every day. It was hard some days because we had to walk no matter the weather.
Some people I know couldn't live without television, fast food, and pizza. And it's surprising to know that many kids have their own cameras, and my family didn't even own one.
The 1930s were tough years. Sometimes when there weren't any boxcars, I rode on top no matter what the weather was like.
The few days I was on the rails, I found work for a couple cents bleaching celery.
One lady served me chicken, homemade gravy, and potatoes, and it was like home again. Saying some words to him helped us get a bite to eat, which was usually a piece of meat and some bread.
Riding in a boxcar or on top of the train was very dangerous.
I grew up during the Great Depression. I lived in Topeka, Kansas. Sometime during the day, someone would report a black roller, which is a dust storm. Those who lived nearby made it home easy, but those who had to travel 6 or 7 miles in a horse-drawn wagon would be in trouble. Some storms lasted several days. If a roller came from the north, we could recognize the rich black topsoil from Nebraska and Colorado. If it came from the south, we'd get the red dust of Oklahoma and Texas. Our topsoil would be exchanged in a day or so as it blew away to a neighboring state. The dust piled up in drifts along the barbed wire fences. Those who stayed believed that one day the rains would come and the desert would bloom again. In the 1940s and 1950s, it did. Later on, some of the farmers that stayed became millionaires.
I grew up during the Great Depression. My Uncle Bill and Aunt Grace moved in with us around 1935. After World War I, Uncle Bill came to the U.S. from Germany. My Uncle Bill attended art school before he married my Aunt Grace. Uncle Bill got up early every morning and walked the 3 miles into town to join a near endless line of men, all wanting a job to support their families. Going on welfare was worse than going hungry, and working for the WPA, Workers' Progress Administration, those lucky enough to have jobs worked for long hours and small pay. Job accident rates rose. A worker complained about his job, and the boss took him over to a window and said, pointing to the line of men, "There are 2,000 men down there who would gladly take your place." People wanted to work, but not handouts. There were no safety nets during the Depression, so people turned to their families, and mostly the door was always open.
During the Depression, a lot of people were out of work, including myself. I enrolled in the CCC. I took a train to Pocatello, Idaho, and then took a truck to Alpine, Wyoming. Our assignment was to build a road from Alpine to Jackson. Where we were at, there were a lot of forest fires. Trucks would take us to the roads closest to the fire. We had to carry buckets of water from the stream to put out the fire. It was cold in Wyoming during the winter, which interrupted our road project. To make our money, we would cut down trees in the nearby forest for telephone poles. I was discharged from my old job, and then I was enlisted into the Army. So soon after, I was able to return home.
I grew up in the Great Depression selling whiskey bottles for 5 cents to the bootleggers. I would also sell medicine bottles to the veterinarian. I would wash the bottle in boiling water and then sell them to the veterinarian. I like doing business with the old horse doctor because he usually gave me a little extra. Once a year, I ventured out selling horseradish to other neighbors. My bottle business taught me imagination and hard work paid off.
In 1934, when I was 12, my family moved in with Grandma in southern Illinois. We never had any luxuries like electricity, a furnace, air conditioning, or even an electric fan. I did my homework at night by the light of a kerosene lamp. My grandfather raised tobacco and had a big garden and several fruit trees. It was my job to pick the fruit and the veggies. And Mom and Grandma worked over a hot stove all summer to can them and make jams and jellies for the coming winter. We were so poor the flies had to carry a lunch to come to our house. We ate a lot of inexpensive meat then. Steak probably would have made us sick. We were able to rent a house after Dad got a job for $1 a day. But those earlier recollections will have a special place in my mind forever.